welcome to this video on representation. I will cover representation generally in the media, but this is specifically representation of gender within film noir and neo-noir. Generally, a representation in media is how something is presented to the public in terms of gender, regional identity, class, ethnicity, age, sexuality and disability. Typically, a representation will carry with it certain stereotypes, and these are predetermined beliefs about said representations. Representations of gender in the media are generally favoured more towards men. Men are seen to hold most of the power, control and authority, whereas women are typically represented as sort of housebound, housewives, cleaners, raising the kids, sort of there to only serve the man's needs. The representation of women hasn't really changed much since in the days of World War I, World War II, where the men went out to war. The men went out to do the work, and they came back to their wives, who were sort of maintaining the houses and all that when they came back. But more within our own advanced portfolio, when creating a media text, it's important to, what we say, encode representations in a way that it makes it easy for audiences to understand and decode the representations. As a director or a producer, the encoded representations have to work within the story, and they have to be correctly associated with the characters. So, if it's an action film, typically the main protagonist will be a male, typically, unless it's a atypical film. This is especially pivotal with the genre of noir, as the representations of males and females in noir is almost sort of flipped on its head. They're very atypical, and they do not conform to the general representations of gender in media. So as previously stated, women are represented to be of lesser importance or stature to men, but in film noir it's often the women who hold the power. They're able to manipulate men and bend them to their own will. When creating the characters for our film, we in the group had to refer to the media representations theory, and the idea that representations not only involve how identities are presented to us, but also how identities are created in order to successfully implement representations into our film. So we not only had to convey the typical representations of a female or male in film noir, but we also had to create those identities through the film. So during our research and planning phase, we took to looking at the genre of film noir, so we could develop the typical representations of character within the genre in our own heads, by looking at the films and how the femme fatales were, how they were represented, clothing, mise-en-scene, props, their way of talking, and such things like that. And in noir, typically the most significantly represented character is the femme fatale, and this was no different with our film. As you can see in our film, our femme fatale, I'll just play it for you. She's seen smoking. This is similar to films such as Double Indemnity, where the femme fatale is here, seen smoking, wearing lipstick, much like ours, wearing lipstick. And this is a noir film called The Killers, which again you can see she's smoking, wearing lipstick. Where are we? I'll just leave it. I don't know if you caught that bit of dialogue, but the femme fatale called Lila in our practical, she's talking to somebody off screen right now, her brother Max, and a question Max posed to her was to the main character Ross was, "Have you met my sister?" The sister being Lila. Lila replies, "No, he hasn't." She doesn't actually name Ross, even though having known who Ross is, she refers to him as he. This implies sort of, she's on a higher level of status than him, doesn't need to refer to him as somebody, just refers to him as he. Also, the denotations and connotations of Lila holding the switch, denotation is she is simply turning the lights on. The connotation of having the power of a switch is having the power in a situation. She is the one who has the power. Where am I? Going back to Lila calling Ross a he and not Ross, it brings back what I said about the representations of males and females in noir almost being flipped. As I said, Lila has the sort of the higher status than Ross, and typically in noir films, the male protagonist is represented how a female would be represented in general media. The male protagonist in noir films is there to only really aid the femme fatale in her, in her grand scheme of getting rich or whatever it is. The male protagonist becomes the sort of the almost not the housebound, but the one that services the female's needs. This is exemplified again through our examples of Double Indemnity and The Killers, in which both the protagonists are only there to serve the femme fatale's needs, and often they don't meet a great end because of it. The superiority of our femme fatale is exemplified through our film poster. As you can see, the femme fatale here is in the background, with her hand over both the protagonist Ross and the protagonist's son Joe. Both physically, the femme fatale is larger than the two male characters down here, implying a physical dominance. Obviously, the case is not that she is physically bigger than them in the actual film, but it implies a dominance over them, nonetheless. Also, the hand is over the two of them. It sort of implies a puppet master type stance. She sort of has control over both of them, not directly to Joe, but indirectly through Ross to Joe. Also, she's holding a cigarette, and cigarettes are typically, associated with males, and they can be seen as a bit of a phallic symbol. So for a woman to take on the phallic symbol of a cigarette, it implies, again, it challenges the typical media representations of gender within women and sort of flips it on its head. Another way are the representations of females and males in noir is exemplified as through our magazine cover. As you can see, this is our director, by the way. As you can see, half of his face is cast in shadow. This sort of, implies a mystery, sort of a secretive aspect to him, something he's hiding. That is exaggerated by the smoke. Another implication of sort of mystery. But more is that his eyes, you can't clearly see his eyes, and the eyes are often what somebody will base their judgment of character on. If you can't clearly see somebody's eyes, it's typically they are hiding something. And in noir, the typical convention of noir is that the protagonist will be hiding something from the world, something he's done to aid the femme fatale in her journey to, richness. And so that's exemplified here through our second or whichever ancillary piece this is. Obviously it's the film magazine poster, but you can't see his eyes. He looks as though he's hiding something, and this obviously is the male. So through all three pieces here, the trailer, the two ancillary pieces, you can see there is a representation of gender in that the males are more dominant. The male tries to hide something, and often it amounts to no avail. He doesn't get away with it. Typically in noir films they don't get away with it, they get framed, they get caught, and the female gets away with the money, the riches, or whatever it is that she's used the male to get for her. So that was my analysis of representation, specifically gender representation, in my advanced practical. Thanks.